I hate the word fail. And I even hate the word mistakes, but that's what they are. I mean, it's a failure, and I used to not want to call it failure because and it's not even that I'm admitting anything. It just seems so negative. But I would justify them. I'd call them, well, I had to fail, that had to happen in order for this to happen. And that becomes a justification when you're not really calling it what it is. And that's kind of been my newest awakening lately. It's just, let's call it what it really was.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of At Home with Emily, a podcast about creating a life you love. I'm your host, Emily Wood, and I'm so excited that once again today we have Lisa Tinkler with us from Redline Athletics, which that's such a small title for you. You're really entrepreneur, coach, so many things, mentor to so many. I feel like you're a mentor to me already.
Wow.
And I've only known you a little while. But Lisa has been an open book with us, and it's just so helpful no matter where you are in life, whether you're stepping out into something new, you're thinking about leaving something, but you've got that feeling telling you you can't do it or it's too risky. We all go through that.
Right.
And some of us step out and we're glad we did. Some of us step out and we wish we wouldn't have.
Right.
You just never know what's going to happen on the other side of that next door.
Very true. Very true.
And so that's what we've been talking about with you.
Yes.
And it's been 6 years now that you decided to open your own training facility.
Right.
First one.
Right.
And how many facilities are we at now?
I'm at 2 personally, with 3 others that I'm guiding and a 4th coming on board real soon.
And you've already mentioned that there was another one.
There was.
That is no more.
That is no more, and it was in Lee Summit, Missouri. Opened up probably too quickly, as I stated before. After opening the one in Springfield. Springfield wasn't 100% solid at that point when I did that, but I felt that it was on the right direction, so let's just jump in. And
Did you have someone pushing you to do that?
No, just me. But I had motivations. Some of it, and I mentioned this, some of it's ego-driven. Well, I can have 10 or 12 of these someday, but I got to get going now. But you have to make sure you're solid in the finances before you do that. And that's what I didn't probably understand. I was a coach. I wasn't a business person. So I have to self-teach myself.
Yes.
That's kind of
absolutely
tongue-tying there, but yes.
No.
You have to train yourself.
Anything you don't know, and you're doing it for the first time.
Right.
It's a challenge.
It is. And you learn a lot, and you will probably, I hate the word fail. And I even hate the word mistakes, but that's what they are. I mean, it's a failure, and I used to not want to call it failure because and it's not even that I'm admitting anything. It just seems so negative. But I would justify them. I'd call them, well, I had to fail, that had to happen in order for this to happen. And that becomes a justification when you're not really calling it what it is. And that's kind of been my newest awakening lately. It's just, let's call it what it really was. I failed in the selection of the location. I failed in tending to it. I started to open one in Lenexa in the midst of this one failing, and I should have waited until it was stronger before I did Lenexa, though I feel like Lenexa sadly is going to be a much better facility and I should have probably started there. I wanted to.
But you didn't know that at the time.
I didn't, and it was really my ego wanted to take it to Lee Summit, a smaller community, farther away from the Overland Park area. This is all up in Kansas City, so big community. I wanted to take it to some place where people normally don't start. So I thought, well, let's start there and get it going. Well, that's the reason. Listen to why other people, don't be so stubborn. Don't be so egotistical to think that yours is going to be more magical than the other people who made the decision not to start in Lee Summit either.
By the way, this was right around 2020, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually it was 2019, the very end of the year, the last quarter that we opened the doors, December 6th, I believe it was. And of course then shut them at the end of February and March because of COVID coming in. They shut all the doors. And then of course in Lee Summit or Jackson County, they required mask wearing for kids during
even
athletic
events.
And they required it up until, I think, well into the start of the next school year.
And you're living all this and you're seeing this unfold and you're thinking,
How am I surviving? Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
How?
Right. You know, at first, in that summer, parents wanted something for the kids. So here in Springfield, we flourished right after that. You know, the mask came off, and it just went crazy here because they couldn't go play organized
We got to get our kids outside.
We do. We need to do
Number
something
one.
with them. They need
or out
some
of the house
exercise.
at the bare minimum.
Yes, exactly. And so many of the restrictions were lifted here, but back in Jackson County, they were still
Interesting.
very much in place.
Much tighter.
Very much tighter. And so we didn't flourish the same way. We increased, but not to the same degree that Springfield did. So then, of course, they're still masking up. These kids get tired of running in mask and doing all that stuff. So it got hard to get them to keep coming back. So people would want to quit coming altogether. So it just was a very tough growth for it. Plus, the location that I chose was not that good, I guess I should say. It was not in an area where people drive by.
Traffic flow.
Yeah, there was none. It was worse than I thought it would be. It was none. The building was perfect for what we do, but that was not a good reason.
So you had to get yourself out of a lease. You had to do all kinds of things.
Yeah, I did. I'm learning a lot.
And you had employees, I'm sure.
I had employees, and that was very difficult to have to tell them, and some of them were almost brand new. Trying to save it, I was trying to find the right people to lead it. Mm-hmm. One of them still keeps in touch with us and might come back and do some training with us. And luckily, he's landed himself a gig as William Jewell's new offensive coordinator.
Wow!
So it worked out really good for him. And he's still in the area of Liberty, where we have a location, not my personal location, but one that I service. He'll probably do some training up there and send some of his football guys there, which Liberty's becoming a big football community, so that'll be great for him. So, you know, it's helpful. And there's the other part that's really hard, is if you have to let an employee go, but if it's for the circumstances, if you can't keep the door open, it's even harder. You're talking about a mass layoff in a way. And it's not that I have that many employees, but I'm affecting everybody.
Absolutely.
And it's a guilt. Mm-hmm. You know, you're like, I don't want to do this to you people, but I don't have a choice.
So how did that change how you looked at growth with the business? Did that
It has slowed down.
added some caution?
Yeah, it does. I mean, because my brain will immediately go, I really want to open one in the Joplin Webb City area, a smaller version of the red line we have here. I really want to do that. And I'm like, nope, can't yet. Not until Lenexa is solid. And Lenexa is not as solid as it could be. Now, I think some of that is we're learning our social media advertising is needing some tweaking, and we're working on that right now. I don't have to necessarily do that, but I have to just call it out so that others will look into it better.
I want to mention something that you hit on but breezed by a little bit that caught my attention. You said that you felt like your ego was at play in that. What do you mean by that?
You know, when you start getting notoriety for what you're doing, you want to just keep building that, I think, is part of that. That's the ego, okay? It's not the right path, always. It is the wrong motivation, 100%. Your motivation should always be what it originally was to begin with. Why did you start this?
Your passion as opposed to,
I'm getting notoriety for what I'm doing. People think it's neat that I have my own business. This is really cool. You know, those things are like, ooh, I'm building up. You know, it's just boosting my ego. It's growing it, but that growing ego can then cause poor decisions.
of just wanting to be bigger.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Right,
Just
and
a bigger
doing it at a
footprint.
time when it's not appropriate, and to keep those voices calling on you and telling you. And you know, when I'm finally settling in, then Emily calls me. You know, so I won't let my ego go crazy. I am not opening Joplin tomorrow, I promise. But I have gone through a lot of awakening in this past spring and summer on my direction to make sure that I'm staying solid. I don't ever want to have to close a door again on a young person who is trying to make a career in an area that's hard to do. There aren't a lot of facilities for training kids. And so when you have a passion for that, and that's what my trainers do, my lead trainer here in Springfield is like, blown over with his passion for training kids. He's always been in the adult side and just is loving the kids side. There's not a lot of avenues for that. You have to go into high school coaching, but that's not necessarily the direction you want to go. And that pigeonholes you into one sport. And he's getting to touch the hearts and souls of kids that from many sports. We even do BMX kids. As a kid riding a bike. We've got dancers come to us. These kids are just amazing. And so I don't want to lose that reason, and I don't want to let my ego cause me to start having to close another door.
I think you see the joy of creating something for yourself and others.
Right.
But it also hurts when a failure affects them.
It does. And I have to be okay with, if I'm just one location, if I give up my region that I own, I own like 21 licenses within Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. If I have to give that up to make this place the very best that it could be across the whole country, I'm willing to do that now. And that's what the awakening has been about. I need to make sure that the one is solid for the rest to be great. So, or instead of the one being solid, the one needs to be beyond fantastic and can never be matched by others. But if I divulge all my energies other directions, just building because my ego needs to be stoked, then I'm not doing it for the right reason. And this one will fail, and I will not let this one fail. And when I say this one, I mean Springfield. Because I can't make Southwest the best athletic area in the country. I think I said the state earlier, but I want to say country now.
Do you feel like when you're doing something new, though, you are going to experience failure?
Oh, yes.
Is it a certainty?
Oh, yes.
I'm kind of wondering about that for myself.
Yes. Well, and there'll be small failures most of the time. Just like,
why did I do that?
It didn't work. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And hopefully it never affects anybody but your own self. And you gotta embrace the failures. I mentioned this earlier. I hate to call failure, but it is what it is. It didn't work. And we could just say, okay, it didn't work. We could call it that, but that's the same thing. It's failed. It failed, but what did I get from that? And that's a cliche. Everybody says you learn from failure. Well, you really do. So you learn not to do that again. And as you keep having lots of failures, you eventually get to the point where you're not failing as much because you've already done that, right? So I'm hoping I'm getting pretty close, So just ideas, simply, okay, that ad didn't work. Why did I run that? Or that we started adult fitness, but it wasn't working as us running it. So I handed it over to the gentleman that was doing the adult fitness. I said, here, this is your business. You pay me rent. And he can flourish it. He can make it work. My focus is kids. Just the little things. We've started a new program called Redline Junior so that we can assist the kids ages 4 to 7, since we don't start until age 8. And the coordination skills of a 4 and 5-year-old are pretty interesting and fun. So if we can start, and a lot of parents will put like a little boy into gymnastics just to help them get that coordination. But sometimes I don't know that they want to go the direction of gymnastics, but it's the only thing that's been offered before. So we decided, let's try this here. And it's been fun. It's very slow growing. We're not over advertising it because I want it to be programmed properly. So we keep them small groups. So these little boys, these little girls learn how to, throw a ball while standing on a wobbly piece of equipment, so that they learn to keep that lower balance going and learn to build their core. And so when they're ready then to come to us at the age of 8, they're already a step ahead of the other 8-year-olds that are in there. And it's not even about that. Even if they never play sports, they've gained that confidence and that coordination and a little bit of strength and knowledge that's going to be very valuable. Sorry, can't talk now.
And so you're at the point in life where you're not planning to slow down.
Well, no, because I have other things I like to do.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned, I love to dabble in, I've bought land before and developed it, just parceled it off and sold it. I would love to do that again, but this time, let's add some buildings on them, some houses or something. I have some creative things that are in my brain. I have more than one passion. We'll just put it that way.
Yes. And I've noticed too, a lot of times with entrepreneurs, there's not an end goal of build so that I can retire.
Yeah,
it's keep building.
Yeah.
And what can I build now?
It is that way. I mean, most of your entrepreneurs, I mean, look at your Warren Buffett's, 90 years old and
Going strong.
yeah, and you can't tell him to stop. And it's not, his brain won't. I mean, that's my biggest issue is I've got to learn how to meditate. I got to clear the brain. And I don't do that very well. And it'll affect sleep. And of course, then at 2 o'clock, I might be up. And, I used to listen to these people talk about how they sleep 4 hours a night. And I'm like, you're crazy. Well, I've gone through that now. I get it. Your brain wakes up. It doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
You might as well just get up because it's not going to do you any good to try to keep sleeping because it's not going to happen. So you're going to either lay there or you can get up and get your emails done.
Well, you're going to come to yoga with me sometime. And we will work on that side.
Yeah, exactly.
It's super important.
It is. It is very important.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for everything that you presented to us and just openly talked about. And it's funny that you mentioned being invited to do the podcast is something that could affect your ego.
Yeah, exactly.
But to me, it's you sharing with all of us and being a mentor to so many, and I greatly appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I would just like to say thank you for letting me spill my guts because it helps me to clear my brain better, so maybe I can not think for a while.
Well, we definitely want you to come back again.
Oh, well, thank you. I would like to.
And thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of At Home with Emily, a podcast about creating a life you love. If you're watching us on YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe so you can be notified of our next drop coming up next Wednesday. And it's a good one. It's a name we all know and love, Mama Jeans. How did Mama Jeans come to be, and why does it have such an amazing cult following here locally? We're going to dive into that with the Mama Jeans founder. We'll see you next time.